Okay, so still simultaneous equations, but this is the higher tier, more tricky, involves quadratics. So as we can see here, this is a quadratic because it has quadratic terms, so to the power of 2. So you solve these slightly differently, and I'm going to write out the steps, and again we're going to run through an example following the steps, and then do 2 exam questions. Well, this is actually also an exam question, but okay, I'm just going to write out what we need to do. Okay, so here I have written out the instructions that we're going to follow, sort of like our recipe book, for doing simultaneous equations when there's a quadratic term. So first of all, we're going to label, like we did before, and then the second point is we're going to substitute one equation into the other. So you always want to rearrange the easier equation, so for example this one is the easy one without the higher order terms. So you've got x equals or y equals because you can sub either one in. So sub one equation into the other. So I'm going to write down subbing, that's not how to spell subbing, 2 into 1. So I'm subbing in equation 2 into equation 1. So where I have an x in equation 1, I'm going to substitute this in. So what I get there is instead of x squared, I get y minus 5 squared plus y squared equals 13. And then my point 3 is to solve. So now I have to just deal with the fact I have to solve this. So first thing I'm going to have to, I've got a squared bracket, so I'm just going to take that to the side. So that is the bracket times itself. So it's a double bracket, and now I'm going to expand this using FOIL. So first, in each bracket is these two. Y squared, the outside is minus 5 times y, so minus 5y. The inside two are these two, so we've got another minus 5y. And then the outside, the last in each bracket is minus 5 times minus 5, which is 25. We can simplify these terms, so we would get y squared minus 10y plus 25. That's just a little bit of working out on the side. I always did that when I did my exam. Okay, so now we know what this bracket is, so it's y squared minus 10y plus 25. Then we've got plus y squared equals 13. So I'm going to bring that 13 over this side and collect like terms. So we have a y squared here and a y squared here. So we have 2y squared minus 10y. Then we have 25. I'm going to bring the 13 over. So I'm going to have 25 take away 13, which is 12. Now as you can see, this is a quadratic equation. So we're going to have to solve the quadratic to find y. So, unfortunately, it has this term here, so we're going to have more steps. So we need a number that times is to give 2 times 12, 24, and adds to give minus 10. So in my head I already think 6 and 4. So let's say I take minus 6, positive 4, what would that give us? No, minus 6, minus 4. If you times those together, you'd get 24. If you do minus 6, minus 4, you get minus 10. So these are the two numbers. So I split this b term. If you watch the factorizing and solving quadratics, you'll know what to do here. I split this bx into these two, so I get minus 4y minus 6y plus 12. So I've just, instead of writing minus 10y, I've split it into minus 4y minus 6y, which is the same thing, but I split it up. I then cover this up and factorize each half, so I take out what's common, which is a 2 and a y, and inside I'm going to get y, because if I expand this out, I get 2y squared and I get minus 4y. Do the same on this side, so what's common is 6, and in bracket I'm going to have 2 minus 2, because if I expand that out I'd get minus 6y and then plus 12. Okay, so now we do a quick check and these two brackets are the same, so we know we've probably done it correctly. So then we have, I'm going to move up here, so in our two brackets we now know what to put, so we put one of the ones that are the same, then we put the coefficients of each of the brackets, so 2y minus 6. Okay, now we keep going, so we know that if you multiply two things together and get 0, one of them must be 0, so we either have this bracket equals 0, y minus 2 equals 0, and therefore y would equal 2. Or we have 2y minus 6 equals 0, so 2y would equal 6, and y would equal 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So we either have y equals 2 or y equals 3. So we have two possible answers. This is what's quite different about quadratic, is the same as when we were solving them normally, same in a simultaneous equation, you get two answers, which means that there are two possibilities also for x. So when you substitute them in, if I just clear some room, you've got, so you can't, so when before we substituted a y value in, we now have 2, so we now have to substitute them in. So both of them, sub in y equals 3, y equals 2. But it says here, solve for the other value, brackets, in easy equation. So when you sub them back in, don't go subbing it back in that one, like it will work, but you know, it's just a pain. Substitute them back into this one, so we've got x equals, so y is 3, 3 minus 5, which is minus 2, and we have x equals y, which is 2 minus 5, so x equals minus 3. Okay, so, and then it says 0.5, write solutions. So I'm going to write them up here. So here we have x equals minus 2 or minus 3, and y equals 3 or 2. So hopefully that made sense, and now we're going to do two more examples of that. So it's slightly harder because you've got the quadratic and then you're going to have to solve one and factorize it and do all that again. Also, very important point with these is you end up with 4 solutions, not just 2. So you don't just end up with a y and an x, you end up with 2 values for x and 2 values for y. Okay, so this is the exam question we're looking at now. So first point is label 2 equations, 1 and 2. Second point, sub one into the other. So firstly, what we need to do here is actually rearrange, so we get either x equals something or y equals something in the easy equation. So I'm just going to go for x equals something, so 2, and then I'm going to bring the y over here, plus y. So I'm going to use this one as equation 2 instead. So substitute one equation into the other, so now we know we can substitute that in. So sub 2 into 1. So I'm just like letting the examiner know what I'm doing. It's quite good practice in maths to be very thorough. So if I do that, instead of x squared, I get this 2 plus y squared plus y squared equals 34. So again, I'm going to go to the side and I'm going to work out what this squared is. So I'm expanding a double bracket, I'm using FOIL. So first, 2 times 2 is 4. The outside in each bracket is 2 times y is 2y. The inside of each bracket is 2y. And then the last in each bracket is y times y, which is y squared. Okay, I can collect like terms here, because I've got 2y and 2y. So I'm going to have 4 plus 2y is 4y plus y squared. Okay, so I'm going to put that back in here. So I've got 4, so this here is what I've just worked out up there. Plus 4y plus y squared. And then I have this y squared equals 34. So again, I'm going to collect like terms and I'm going to bring it all to one side. So they're like terms, and then also these are just the normal numbers. So here I'm going to have 2y squared, so I have 2y squared, I have plus 4y, then I have a plus 4 here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 34, because it's a bit sad on its own over there, and bring it around this side, so because I want the thing to equal 0. So if it's plus 34 on that side, it's going to be minus 34, so I'm going to get 4 minus 34 is minus 30. Okay, and then this is now, I'm trying to solve this for y, because I've only got one unknown, but it's a quadratic, so I'm going to have to solve the quadratic equation, so I want a number that multiplies to give minus 60 and adds to give 4. Okay, so I'm thinking 10 and 6, but I don't know which one to put as negative, so I'm going to try with minus 6. So minus 6 times 10 is going to give me minus 60. Minus 6 add 10 does give me 4. So these are my two numbers I'm going to use. So my next step is I replace the b term, the bx, but it's by, with these two. So instead of writing plus 4y, I write minus 6y plus 10y, and I get that from there. So instead of writing 4y, I split it into these two because of this. The next step then is to factorize. So I cover it in half and I factorize. So what's common on this side? 2 and a y. Put y there and a minus 3 there, because if I did 2y times y would be 2y squared, and 2y times minus 3 would give me 6y. I cover up this half and I do the same here. So what's common in these two terms? That would be 10. So I can pull the 10 out, and then I need a y because it's missing y, and I need to get the minus sign, and I need to get 30, so I do 10 times 3. Okay, very good to check to see, yes, these two brackets are the same, so I'm probably on the right tracks. Now I can write down the two brackets, one of which is just this bracket, the one that's the same, and the other one is the coefficients of each of the brackets, coefficients. So the 2y from there and the plus 10 from there. Okay, so we have these two here. Let me just make some room. So now we need to solve this. And we know that if two things multiplied together equals 0, one of those things must be 0. So either this bracket is 0, or this bracket is 0, y minus 3 equals 0. So if we solve these, we're going to get y equals, take the 3 over 3, or 2y, if we take the 10 over, you get negative 10 instead of positive, because inverse. And y equals, take the 2 to the other side, it's multiply on here, so it's divide over here. Minus 10 divided by 2 is minus 5. So here we have our y solutions. We have y is equal to minus 5, or y is equal to 3. But we're not done. This is like, hold your horses. You think like, thank God I've put so much effort into that, I'm done. Turn over. No, you need to find the x values, unfortunately. You have to have 4 answers here. So we sub these back in. So we'll solve for the other value in easy equation. So, don't go putting it back in this one, put it in equation 2. We could put it in this one, so we're going to have x equals 2 plus y, so minus 5 in one example, or x equals 2 plus y, 3. So you put the y in there, you put y in there, so we've got two different values for y. So 2 minus 5 is minus 3, and 2 plus 3 is 5. So just going to write out, we do have our solutions there, but I'm just going to write them up here. So we have x equals minus 3 or 5, and y equals minus 5 or 3 from there. So we're going to do one more final example, now we're absolutely experts. I'm going to actually rub out the steps and test if we can do it without the steps. Gives me more room. Okay, so this is our final exam question. So solve the simultaneous equations x squared plus y squared equals 20 and 2x plus y equals 3. Now we know we have to do it with the quadratic way because we have these higher order quadratic terms in equation 1. So the first step was label our equations. And the second step was substitute one into the other. So we need to rearrange this one first. We either want y equals something or x equals something in the easy equation, which is this one. And I'm going to make y equal something because x is attached to a 2 and I can't be bothered to deal with dividing. So 3, take this over, minus 2x. This is my new equation 2. So now I'm just going to tell them what I'm going to do. So sub in 2 into 1. So I'm substituting equation 2 into equation 1. So if we do that, we have x squared plus, and not y squared, we have, this is now our y, 3 minus 2x squared equals 20. So let's go to the side and work out 3 minus 2x squared. So 3 minus 2x times 3 minus 2x. So we do FOIL first in each bracket, so 3 times 3 is 9. Outside in each bracket, so that is 3 times minus 2x, which is minus 6x. The inside of each bracket, so that is again minus 6x, and then the last two, so minus 2x times minus 2x is plus 4x squared. These two can be joined, so we get 9 minus 6x is minus 12x plus 4x squared. Okay, we've done that to the side, pretending we could do that in our head. So now let's pop that in there. So we replace this with what we've just worked out, which is, the same thing. Basically, we've expanded the bracket. Okay, So now let's again collect like terms. So we have an x squared and then 4x squared, and we also have, we all want it on one side, we have a 9 here and a 20 here. So 1x squared plus 4x squared gives me 5x squared. We just have a minus 12x here, nothing we can add to that. And then we have a 9 on this side, and we're going to bring the 20 over. And when we bring the 20 over, it becomes negative. So 9 minus 20 is minus 11 equals 0. So now we've got a quadratic that we want to solve. And we want to find a number that multiplies to give minus 55, because that's 5 times minus 11, and adds to give minus 12. Now, spoiler alert, it doesn't exist. So you're kind of sat there for ages, like ripping your hair out, thinking, I cannot come up with these numbers. So instead of actually trying to factorize, we know the only other option we have is to use a quadratic formula. So we're going to have to do that instead. So I'm going to write out quad formula. It's so cool, now we call it quad formula. So that is x equals, so x equals minus b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. First thing I like to do is identify what a, b and c are. So a is a coefficient of the x squared, so in my example a is 5, b is a coefficient of the x, minus 12, coefficient means number before, it's just maths speak, and then this is minus 11, the c. So now we substitute those values into here, so x equals minus b, so minus minus 12 becomes plus 12. Plus or minus the square root of b squared is minus 12 squared, so minus 12 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 5, times c, which is minus 11, all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 5. And then you put that in your calculator, and it takes a while, so I'll get back to you. Okay, so one of the answers I get is x equals 3.1, and then 0.787 blah 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 blah, etc. And the reason I haven't rounded that yet is because I know I'm going to have to substitute that back into an equation to find y. So I'm going to do that now before I find out the other value. So that was when I used the plus one. So if x equals this, y equals, so I'm looking from here again, I'll do it in pink. So from this equation here, I'll do a little star. We know that y equals 3 minus 2 times 3.107. And I've left it in my calculator so I know I can get an accurate answer. And that gives me y equals minus 3.2. And then this time I can round it because I'm not going to go on and use it again. So that's going to be minus 3.2223 sig fig. Okay, so I'm now going to round this x value as well to 3 sig fig. So that is going to become... Okay, so I did that for the 1x value. Now I'm going to go back and type in this thing but with the minus here and see what I get. Okay, so when I put the minus version in, I get x as minus 0.707878 blah blah blah. And again, I'm not going to round that yet because I know I then need to substitute it in. So I might actually make a note of that. Okay, so then I'm going to substitute this value back into here, into the easy equation, which is this one. So 3 minus 2, and then x is minus 0.7078 blah 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 blah. Okay, then you continue working on your calculator and put that in. So we get y equals, and we can round this now because we're not going to use it again, 4.423 sig figs. So yeah, you leave that on your calculator, and then when you do the next calculation, you put answer, so you basically get as accurate answer as you want. And yeah, we can round this one now, so minus 0.71. So this is your first sig fig, this is your second, and then this is your third. Okay, so just to put my answers in a box really clear, because obviously there's a lot going on, like I wouldn't want to mark this. So what are my answers? I have x equals 3.11, x equals minus 0.708, I have y equals minus 3.22, or y equals 4.42, and now on to 3 sig figs. Bravo, you're done.